Today, there are yet new warnings for the U.S. economy. Goldman Sachs putting the odds of a recession within the next year at 25%. With Americans acutely feeling the pain at the pump, the national price for a gallon of gas is up 65 cents just since the war with Iran began. And now, revised numbers from the Commerce Department show that the economy actually had a much slower growth than expected in the final 3 months of 2025. Core inflation also ticked up in January, with price increases higher than the Federal Reserve would like to see. Joining me, Bill Kristol, founding director of Defending Democracy Together. Here in studio is Alex Jaquez, chief of policy and advocacy at Groundwork Collaborative. Alex, the government numbers show that the U.S. economy was already on shaky ground. And now you have this prediction, which is a little bit scary about the possibility of a recession. How much more vulnerable are we now than we were at the start of the war?
Look, you said the numbers. They're all trending down. We are seeing inflation that is not reaching that 2% target that the Fed would like us to see. We lost 92,000 jobs last month. And now we have an oil and energy spike that is going to hit people at the gas pump. It's going to hit airfare. It's going to hit food and agriculture costs all across the economy. That brings a very real worry that we might be headed towards stagflation, which is the hardest kind of economic downturn for the Fed to combat. It's where you have higher and rising prices, sluggish and low growth, and you have a weak job market. We have all the pieces right there. This war in Iran is only going to make things worse.
Bill, MS Now is reporting that the Trump administration did not anticipate that Iran would actually close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Pete Hegseth, I have to say, denied that today. But he also told the American people this morning they, quote, don't need to worry about it. Do you think he and the president believe that the American people are genuinely willing to pay, just as of today, that 65 cents a gallon more in order to go after Iran? What do you think the thinking is when you say don't worry about it?
Yeah, I think they're putting off having to make some really tough decisions. I mean, it's not just that what's already priced in, it's what's going to happen. I mean, are we going to actually open the strait or not? Are we going to provide escorts? I mean, John Kirby correctly said that's expensive and resource intensive. Are we going to clear out the Iranian? Are we going to so decimate all Iranian capabilities that they can't lob some missiles and some drones at ships enough to deter people from going through? All the reinsurance talk in the world is nice, but it doesn't, A, we can't insure every ship, and B, that's not going to take care of it either. I bet most of those war plans that Admiral Cooper has that have to do with securing the strait, if we had to do it, and Iran has not closed it in the past because there's been we didn't go after their regime, they didn't close the strait. We have gone after their regime, we in Israel. The Iranians are reacting by playing their big card. It's it's risky for them to do it, but it's also causing real damage. Are we going to go in? I bet a lot of the war plans Admiral Cooper has us sending in ground troops to secure at least the border, the coast of the strait. That's every military person I've talked to says basically, you want to secure a waterway, you need to control, what can be lobbed into that waterway at least easily. And you can't just do that from the air. I don't know. Is Trump going to send in ground troops or not?
Yeah, I mean, I was reading today that a former senior strategist for the Middle East, who actually had the job of gaming out the possible closure of the strait, said exactly what you said, which is that you can't secure it without being on the ground in what is now Iran's territory. And to do that, you need boots on the ground. The only other alternative would be diplomacy. I don't know. Do you see either of those things happening, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, we could pummel them for another week, and then we could have indirect negotiations, and they could basically agree kind of a ceasefire. They would let the boats, they would reopen the strait. We would stop the assault, I suppose. That would mean accepting the current regime or something very much like the current regime in Iran, which raises a million questions going forward about was this worth it and what happens 6 months from now or 12 months from now, and what about all the war goals that had to do with making both regime change or at least totally debilitating the regime, which we wouldn't have done presumably if they still were able to close the strait. So I don't know. I mean, I think Trump has been very averse to sending in ground troops, obviously. I've assumed he wouldn't. I assume he'd prefer to take the deal that I just mentioned than to risk sending in ground troops. But I'm a little shaken in that view by the fact that he's deploying Marines there now today, I guess, and also just by the general bellicosity of the rhetoric, which may make it hard for them. to back off. But I mean, just on the economic front, again, we tend to talk. I mean, this has been absolutely correct what we've been saying here, but I think for where we are now. But this is very much of a move. It could stabilize sort of where it is now, but basically things probably are either going to get better or get worse, right? I think gasoline prices will come back to what they were in 2 or 3 months, or they'll get worse than they are because the Strait will stay closed.
Well, that's sort of U.S. possibilities there, Alex. But Iran's plan, the way the Wall Street Journal editorial board put it today, is this. If it can raise the price of oil high enough for long enough, it believes it can force Mr. Trump to call off the bombing campaign. And I noted the way your organization put it in a headline today. Consumer sentiment tanks, prices rise, and growth stalls. So could Iran be right?
That's the plan, and they have been successful thus far. They have made the economic costs of the war extremely painful for Americans and for President Trump. We have started to see some of these outreaches and diplomacy that have been so far rebuffed by Iran, and it's very clear that they believe that if they can continue to impose these economic costs at the gas pump, at the grocery store, that will be the way to push Trump off of this. And so far, by keeping that strait closed and closed indefinitely, that is succeeding so far. They are continuing to make us pay economically, and how long Trump will allow that to go on, I think, is the open question here.
I'm out of time, but I have to ask you because we talked about it in the break, and a lot of people are planning for their summer vacations. What are you hearing about the cost to airlines of this?
So the downstream refined products from oil, things like bunker fuel for ships, jet fuel for planes, gasoline, those are the ones that are going through the roof. Airlines are eating tremendous costs on fuel right now. So the domestic airlines taking an $11 billion hit already with their increased costs. Ticket prices are going up soon.